Okay, hands up if you've ever been a GSOC intern or outreachy intern. Really? 3? No, I don't believe you. More people have been interns, right? 4? Okay, hands up if you've ever been a mentor. Lots more, very good. Hands up if you'd say GSOC has had a big impact on your life. Yeah, no? Me too. My life was definitely impacted by being an intern. Got me closer to Nome, possibly got me the job that I have now. Very important program. Hands up if you don't know anything about GSOC or Outreachy and you don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, so I won't spend too long introducing what they are, but just for anyone who doesn't know, Google Summer of Code is a paid internship program. So it's very important. Interns who are students from, well, in fact, it's open to anyone now. Anyone in the world who is new to a community can be paid to do an internship for 2 to 3 months, usually, on an open source project. And Nome has been involved in GSOC since the very beginning, I think. I think we've been involved every single edition. Am I right? Yes. So that's great. And Outreachy is a similar program, similar but different. So Outreachy focuses more on specific diversity issues. There's a really good way of explaining this, so I want to try and get this right. I learned this all from a talk that I saw in FOSDEM this year called Outreachy 1000 Interns, which is a fantastic talk, and went over the whole history of the program, which began in Nome, by the way. Was founded by Marina in Nome in 2000 and something. Also another great thing to come out of our community. And Outreachy has changed over its existence, but the way they now specify who can be an intern is that interns themselves say if they are subject to any systemic bias or discrimination in the technology industry in their country. So they decide, and then the Outreachy admins review their applications and say, okay, yes, this is, they decide who's accepted to the program. So really flexible, really meaningful. And I should say as well, thanks to Google for sponsoring both GSOC and Outreachy. Google also contributes to the funding of Outreachy. And the Nome Foundation also sponsors the Outreachy internships that we do every year. So big thanks to everyone involved in making that happen. Usually this is presented by Felipe, but Felipe couldn't be in the US, so I'm taking his place. I've already talked about what they are. Wait, okay. These are all the internships that are happening in 2024. So the first one actually was winter Outreachy program, well, Northern Hemisphere winter. So that was December to March of this year, 2 interns working on the open QA tests. And we now have 9 more internships open. And we have lightning talks from 6 of them. So all of the interns are pre-recorded lightning talks. Unfortunately, we couldn't have any of them here, and the time zone difference is quite noticeable. A lot of people are in Asia or in Europe, and so it's about between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. for them at the moment. So we have pre-recorded talks from 6 interns, and there may be a Q&A at the end. One intern said they'd be available for Q&A, so we'll get to that as well. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to play the videos, assuming I was smart enough to keep them open. Yes, I was. So the first one is going to be Barett Ji. They are going to talk about their project on Workbench. And I just need to play the video. And obviously I need to pray that sound is going to work, right? Okay. It's coming out of my laptop speaker. So, okay, what do I do?
Settings, change your output to HDMI.
All right. Oh no, I have to set the audio output in emergency. I've never done this. Oh no, all my random videos are coming up. Okay, settings, sound. Sound. Quick settings, that's too difficult. I don't use the quick settings. Output device, HDMI. Let's test it. Let's test it.
Front, left, front, left.
Front, right. And just turn your trigger volume all the way. On your laptop.
Front, right.
That's still pretty quiet. All right.
Front, right.
Yes,
front, left.
Perfect. GNOME settings works. A treat. Thank you, everyone. Okay, let's go back to the video. Hopefully now we can hear Barett as well as see their presentation.
Hello everyone, I am
Yes.
Barett Ji and welcome to my lightning talk. I am a Google Summer of Code participant here and working on improving a few aspects of Workbench. So let's directly dive into my projects this year. I ported a bunch of demos in Workbench to Vala from JavaScript and also a few of them like going back and forth with Python and JavaScript, both of them. Now, some of you may not know what Vala is. So for you guys, Vala is a programming language that is created by developers UART and Rafael. I hope I'm pronouncing their names right. And the language itself has a self-hosting compiler that generates C code and uses the G object type system. You can either use your pre-existing code that you have, or you can generate that code from Vala itself. Now that we know what Vala is, let's move on to a few demos that I enjoyed using and porting. Like the first demo is session monitor and inhibit. This one was very interesting. It inhibits the user from logging off or idling and shows them a warning message depending on whatever you enter in it. It is similar to how your unsaved Word documents ask you to save them before you can close the application. The next demo, which is to the bottom left, is the maps demo. It's simply super fun to look at and to scroll around anywhere in the world. It tells you the coordinates of the location you have marked, or it can also take you to the coordinates that you've entered into the fields. Now, the other two demos that I've shown here I enjoyed them because they were a good widget tool, also apart from looking good. So if you would like more details about all the ports that I've made, then it's there on this link. Since most of the ports have been merged, I have moved on to the next part of my project. And currently I am working on bringing some quality of life improvements to the current library in Workbench. Let me demonstrate it so you can understand it better. So on the left side, you have the initial iteration of Workbench. This is where I started with. And as you can see that the search bar is behind a search button. And there were a few people that did not know that the search bar existed before they were told that it did. So what we simply did was we just moved the search bar inside of the library. So right now you can directly see it when you open the library. So there's no chance of missing it. You can also see these two new category and language filters. I will talk about them in a minute. The reason I say this is because before we could implement these filters, we needed to get rid of a bunch of ADW components that do not allow filtering. So Sony recommended that I unlazy his initial approach for the library and get rid of these and move away to better options that allow filtering. Once that was done, I moved on to implementing these filters. Right now, the feature is still a very work in progress and it needs some adjustments before it arrives on your Workbench. So as you can see, the filters do work. They filter out by the languages you want the demos in and also by categories. And it can also filter by both of them together. And it also allows you to search through those filtered categories. So that is the current iteration. And it should be done, like, it won't take much time with the current iteration. So those have been the updates from my end. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being very patient with me. I would like to thank my mentor Sony, my reviewers Diego and Lawrence, Google, and the GNOME Foundation for this wonderful opportunity. Have a nice day.
Okay, thank you, Barett. Great video. Thanks to Sonny and Lawrence for mentoring. And now we're going to move on to the next. So the next two are both outreachy interns, and they're both working on the same project, which is user research, being mentored by Alan Day, and I'm going to have to read this one. Aryan Kaushik. I hope I got that right. And the first one, have I got two videos, or is this a graphics glitch? The first one is Udo, and they're going to talk about their user research that they're
Hi
doing.
everyone, my name is Utoyi GBK. I am an early career user experience designer from Nigeria, and I am currently interning with GNOME as an Outreachy participant. My mentors are Alan Day and Aryan Kaushik, and my internship project focuses on conducting user research exercises for GNOME. I'm here to give a short presentation about my internship project, and I'd really like to just tell you why this project is so cool. But in order for me to do that, I have to briefly discuss a few other concepts. The first of which I have tagged the dangers of assumption in software development. Permit me to begin with a definition of the term. The Cambridge Dictionary defines an assumption as something that you accept as true without question or proof. Why is this relevant to software development, you may ask? It is relevant because we all make assumptions in our daily lives, and we make assumptions in software development as well. And although we may do this for different reasons, we generally do it because an assumption can oftentimes be a great place to begin fleshing out ideas or building understanding around a subject of interest. But when it comes to software development, there is an inherent risk associated with every decision we make that's based on unchecked assumptions. This is because an assumption, when brought under scrutiny, can end up being discovered as true or false, or in some cases, inconclusive. Now, on the flip side, when left unchecked, we are likely to run with this assumption until we arrive at the finish line before learning about its validity. And depending on the context, the cost of having stacked layers and layers of choices on an assumption that turns out to be wrong can be very unpleasant. Thankfully, in the software development process, this is where user research comes in. In very simple terms, user research is any activity that is done to build understanding around a problem, a software, or the users of a software. And it is a very effective practice for tackling the dangers of assumption in the software development process. There are lots of user research methods to choose from, and each one seeks to help us eliminate avoidable risk from our software development process by validating assumptions quickly and cheaply, consequently helping us to make better choices throughout the process. For our internship project, we have adopted the usability test method as our chosen method to gather insights on a few GNOME applications. But what is a usability test? A usability test is essentially a research method that evaluates how user-friendly and effective a software is by observing users interact with it. They are quite versatile, and they are very useful for discovering subtle things in a software's design that can severely alter the experience that a person has when interacting with the software. Things like findability, for instance. If a user is unable to find a feature in an application, then they will never be aware that the feature exists in the application, regardless of the amount of time and hard work that has gone into building that feature into the application. I can now tell you why I think my project is really cool. I'm really excited about this project because it seeks to help ensure that the amazing work that's being done by GNOME contributors are evident in the user's experience of GNOME software. And it aims to do this by verifying if the intended value of the software is accessible by the people that will use it, instead of assuming that it is accessible. By doing so, we will be able to learn what's currently great about the software and also what can be improved to enhance the software's effectiveness. Our hope is that these insights will then inform design and development choices, which, when implemented, can enhance the software's user experience for GNOME users. We hope to have multiple rounds of usability tests, and we have put a lot of effort into planning and designing these tests. Having recently concluded participant recruitment for the first round, we are on track to start testing some media applications with GNOME users by next week. After running these sessions for the first round, we will then begin analysis of the data that we collect and start recruitment for the second round of tests. My internship experience has been really amazing so far. I did come into Outreachy hoping to learn, and I have learned so much from working on this project. I'd like to end my presentation by expressing my sincerest gratitude to my mentor for that. And I'd also like to express my gratitude to the GNOME project for making it possible for me to have this experience as an Outreachy participant. You can find more about our project and read about my GNOME Outreachy experience on my blog. And you can also find me on these channels. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Udo. And we're going to do one more video, which is Tam Jong Larry.
Hello everyone.
There.
My name is Tam Jong Larry. I am an Outreachy intern at GNOME. My project is focused on conducting usability tests for some GNOME applications. In this project, I am fortunate to be working with two incredible mentors, Alan and Arian. In this project, our goal is to assess and improve the usability of several GNOME applications. Usability testing is a critical part of software development, as it helps us to identify pain points that users might experience, and it allows us to make the necessary improvements for a smoother and more intuitive user experience. In this study, we are specifically testing three media apps: Showtime, which is a video player; Loop, which is an image viewer; and Decibels, which is an audio player. Also, we will be testing the Files Manager. Usability testing involves evaluating an app by testing it on real users. This process helps us to understand how easily users can navigate and interact with an application. And it helps us to identify any issues they encounter and gather qualitative and quantitative data to improve the overall user experience. Our approach in this study involves several steps. The first step is selecting the applications to test. And we have chosen some key GNOME applications which I already listed: Showtime, Loop, Decibels, and the Files Manager. The second step involves creating the test plans and the test scenarios. We develop realistic test scenarios that a typical user might encounter while using the apps. The test step involves recruiting participants, and we select a diverse group of users to participate in our test to ensure a wide range of feedback. The first step is conducting the test. We facilitate the usability testing sessions, and we ask participants to perform specific tasks on the apps while we observe and take down notes. The fifth step involves analyzing the results. After the test, we analyze the data and we identify common issues and areas for improvement within the apps. Throughout the usability test, our goal is to uncover several key insights in how users use the app. And the key goal is to provide this feedback to the design team, who in turn would improve the design of the apps and improve the user experience. Thank you for listening, and I'm excited to be here.
Okay, thanks to Tam Jong Larry. I think it's going to get some interesting insights from both of those user research projects. So I wanted to take a quick break from the videos at this point and talk a bit about how the internships actually happen and how you can help to make sure they continue happening. And there are lots of ways you can help interns join and thrive the GNOME community, from ones which are very easy to other ways which are also easy but maybe a little bit more time-consuming. The simplest thing you can do is just make everyone feel welcome when new people pop up in the chat, and when people have their blogs added to the GNOME Planet and they post on discourse about the projects. It's really important to give feedback, because a lot of people, it's quite strange, right, when you're sat at home on your computer and you haven't come to GUADEC, you don't know who the people are, and if nobody interacts with you online, then it's like a ghost town. So it's very important that we make all the interns feel welcome online, we chat to them, thank everyone for their contributions, and generally make the online sort of community of GNOME feel alive and welcoming for everyone. That's what makes it fun, right? Another thing you can do is propose project ideas. It's great if you can also mentor them, but sometimes we just don't have, if you have a really good idea for something that might be an internship project, then feel free to propose it. There's a GitLab repo there where you can put ideas. I generally find that a good project idea is something that can be broken up into a few pieces rather than one big chunk of work. So for example, the OpenQA test internship that we did was a really interesting project because you could succeed almost straight away, right? You add one test and that's already, there's already a measurable benefit. So sometimes we have projects where the whole thing is kind of one huge merge request and then kind of gets stuck in review and in the end it doesn't get merged. Those projects are okay, but it's great if we can have projects where it's lots of small pieces. I think the workbench demos is another great idea because you can do one demo, you can do 100 depending on your skill level, but either way you've achieved something. So propose project ideas. Volunteer as a mentor. We need more mentors. All the existing mentors are very much appreciated, but we need more people to mentor. It's fun if you've never done it, and it's a great way to get people involved in parts of GNOME, but it's also a great way to meet people and to teach people. One thing I'd like to say, if you've been a GSOC mentor before, then maybe try Outreachy, because they're actually quite different. Like, they both have strengths, and I found it quite a different experience being an Outreachy mentor compared to being a GSOC mentor. Being an Outreachy mentor was a lot more hands-on. The Outreachy project has a lot more structure, and they kind of guide the interns a lot more. And it's also much smaller, so there's more contact between the admins and the interns. So it's really interesting, and it's a really different experience. If you've done GSOC but you've never done Outreachy, try that. And another cool thing about Outreachy is you can do it in December when, at least if you live in the Northern Hemisphere, the weather is terrible in December and January. There's nothing to do except go online and mentor interns. So consider that if you don't want to give up your summer, give up your winter. Okay.
You are currently the only person in this conference.
Curious. I don't think that's true, actually. But thanks, Big Blue Button. That could mean that, let me bring up the Big Blue Button window. Okay, so Sudansu is here. I don't know how to say your name. And I don't know if you can hear me. They've dropped off again. If someone could go into the attendees track 2 chat and just ask them to rejoin and say that we'll get to their Q&A after, that'd be really helpful. So the internships committee, for the last 9 years, the internships were managed basically by Felipe Borges on his own, which is a heroic task. I'd like a round of applause for Felipe, please, for all the work he's done. And Felipe has formed a new interns committee and is handing over the reins of this to the interns committee. So I think we have one member of the interns committee here, which is Sri. And we have another member, which is Alan Day, who is in Berlin. Also deserves a round of applause. More people are welcome. Running the internships between a team of 3 is not a huge amount of work, right? It's more about consistency, but it's not like it's going to take you hours per week. You can do it in a little bit of time every day, or even a little bit of time a week. So if you feel like you'd like to contribute in a non-technical way, that's a great committee to join. And just talk to Sri. He'll tell you how to get involved. And you can also help without officially joining, I'm sure. But there's plenty of ways you can help out. Okay, so we're going to go back to the next 3 videos. The next one is going to be, this is a very special one for me because I'm one of the mentors. So pay particular attention to this one. I'm joking. Pay attention to all of them.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, that's a good level of volume. The next one is, I always call him Demigod, but it's Divyansh Jain and Rachel Tam, and they're going to talk about the web IDE for Tiny SparkQL? You might say, what's Tiny SparkQL? You'll find out tomorrow.
Hello everyone, my name is Divyansh Jain and I am also known by my hacker name Demigod. I am joined by my colleague Rachel. We are working on a GSOC project for Tiny Sparkle where we are developing a web ID. We are mentored by Sam and Carlos. So the project that we are working on is developing a web ID so that the developers who are working on Tiny Sparkle or Tracker Sparkle can run these queries in a web-based environment instead of running them on a command line tool. This web-based tool will provide tools to visualize results, troubleshoot queries, and more. So the main challenge that we faced were integrating the third-party JavaScript packages in our codebase. Since the tracker codebase does not use any JavaScript, we needed to find a way to integrate JavaScript in the codebase. Since we used NPM and NPM adds a lot of bulk, so we needed to find a way to minimize this bulk. The second challenge was dropping the libsoup2 support. Since the previous version of the HTTP server supported various versions of libsoup2 library, namely the libsoup2 and libsoup3, we needed to find a way to make the development easier by dropping the support of one of them. So we dropped the support of libsoup2 library. The language support. Since neither of us were familiar with the syntax highlighting and linting, which meant quite a lot of exploring was needed to provide the full suite of Sparkle language support needed in the IDE. Now the changes that we did to the existing HTTP endpoint. We extended the HTTP endpoint to serve static files. We needed to deliver HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files from the G-resource bundle to serve the web ID. Next, we ensured that the changes we did were secure. We ensured that any user cannot access system files through unauthorized paths. Next, we ensured backwards compatibility. The existing HTTP server supported querying Sparkle queries, so we ensured that those functionality remain. And since the HTTP server became more and more complex as we added new functionalities, we needed to find a way to make it easier to debug. So we added a logging system which logs all the incoming HTTP requests and outgoing HTTP responses. Now I will pass on to Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel, and I'll be telling you about how we solved the main challenge we mentioned earlier about the JavaScript third-party packages. So we found that it was quite necessary to use the third-party packages just to make it easier, not having to build the editor from scratch. So to make sure that this does not affect the main code base that much, we are using Webpack, a JavaScript bundler, to actually help us with this process. So the way this works is that we will be writing HTML, CSS, JavaScript files in just a normal web development kind of way. And then these files, instead of being directly served by the backend server, they will be bundled up using Webpack such that all the third-party dependencies are bundled up together instead of having to keep the entire package around. So that actually takes out a lot of the bulk needed, and that also means that people who are not developing on the web IDE itself will not have to experience any NPM related bulk as a result of us introducing web IDE to the Tiny Sparkle code base. So these Webpack bundles will then go through the Meson build process to be compiled into G resources, which then is served by the libsoup server without any extension to support JavaScript per se. Now I will show you a quick demo of what we've been doing so far. So this is the main interface of the web IDE. We have an editor here that we use a third-party package for, and some spaces here for notes that we will add, as well as a result space. So using a simple query, you can see that the results will be tabulated on the site here. We have checkboxes here, so you can show and hide various variables when you have long queries. And in the case of an invalid query, we will be error reporting as shown here. And yeah, that is what we have so far. In the future, we will also be adding some error highlighting functionalities as well as some bookmarking and so forth. And I hope you look forward to that. And yeah, thank you for today. Do keep up on our progress on our blogs and see you again.
Okay, thanks to Demigod and Rachel for making that, and for being great interns as well. So if it's not, this has spoiled something I was going to talk about tomorrow, which is that we've renamed the tracker Sparkule to make it clearer what it does, right? That it's a database and not something that tracks you. Okay, the next one is going to be Mattia, and Mattia is going to talk about their work on FlatSync. Very slick. There we go.
Hello, I'm Mattia Formichetti, and today we are going to talk about FlatSync, one of GNOME's GSOC projects this year. So, first of all, I'm Mattia Formichetti, a 20-year-old guitar student from Italy. I've always been very interested in contributing to GNOME, but only recently found the opportunity thanks to Google Summer of Code. So what is FlatSync? FlatSync is a project that started out for last year's GSOC. Its main objective is to keep flat backups synchronized between different devices. Most of the work went into developing a daemon that could run in the background to track changes in the installation. The data is then parsed as JSON and stored on GitHub as a gist. While most of the base functionality was already implemented when I started contributing, the GTK application was incomplete. Most of my work, therefore, focused on improving the libadwaita frontend, as well as implementing some features to increase its overall usability. The first thing I tackled was exposing the synchronization so that users may control whether or not the process is automatic, as well as its schedule. This also meant tweaking the conditions that prevent it, such as checking the power saver profile. Now, it's also possible to manually request synchronization, override the conditions. Alongside, I also made some smaller tweaks, such as porting to Adwaita 1.5 with the new responsive dialogues. While I thought about how to present the manual synchronization, I also worked on an initial icon. This was my first experience designing one, as well as using tools such as Inkscape. Through various discussions, it seems clear that in the future it would be ideal to rebrand FlatSync to something that better aligns with the GNOME HIG. This way, a superior metaphor for the icon can also be found. Afterwards, I finally exposed manual synchronization, as well as a nice overview of the app. I also took the occasion to implement a status reporting system that allows the app to communicate with the daemon. This allows it to reflect changes in the daemon, such as synchronization and error states. There's now also a banner to give feedback on the status of automatic synchronization. Further work around error handling led to expired logins now being shown, as well as notifications being sent on errors and warnings. I then went on to implement an initial setup after approval for the mockup. Now FlatSync can be fully configured from the frontend with a much clearer presentation. In the future, it will be possible to filter out the apps that users only want locally. This is going to be especially useful for those who have a dedicated gaming system, as Steam and related software can be quite heavy. While this is the last planned feature for GSOC, I'd very much like to move FlatSync further. This is a mock-up that I recently made. This includes the aforementioned rebranding, as well as completing the necessary metadata, including the newly introduced app brand colors. It would also be great to do some bug fixing and take some screenshots, as ideally we'd like FlatSync to release on FlatHub as soon as it's ready. Releasing on FlatHub, as well as being included in the GNOME Circle, would mean finally reaching users, which is ultimately our goal. While this won't be simple, and it's unlikely for everything to be ready by the end of GSOC, I'll contribute to this overarching goal as well. In conclusion, throughout these first months I learned a lot about design, partly by actively working on mockups before implementing features, as well as discussion with the community. I also learned more about Rust, GTK and libadwaita. I want to thank my mentor Cogitry, as well as the community, as your help was truly invaluable. I would love to keep contributing to GNOME in the long term, and this internship has been a beautiful start so far. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mattia. And we need more guitarists in GNOME, I think. Yes, we do. I'm going to put on the last one, which is Sudhansa's talk. Let me just check big blue button. Okay. So let's hope I don't mess this up. Are you there, Sudhansa? You're muted. I'm muted. Okay. Can you hear us, Sudhansa? Sudhanshu? Please tell me if I'm getting your name right as well.
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent. Okay, we're just going to play your talk video, and then we'll do a Q&A where anyone who has questions can ask you. So first I'm going to play the video.
Yes, I'm here. Yes,
hello everyone. I am Sudhanshu Tiwari.
Yes,
and my GSOC project is related to the Vala programming language, which is a popular language to build GNOME applications. My mentor for this project is Lorenz Wilberg, and he has been very helpful in guiding me through the code base of the Vala compiler. So let's take a look at my project. Firstly, let's look at the project objectives. The first objective is to make the Vala compiler support the newest GObject introspection attributes. This will be helpful in generating the Vala bindings by making the task of parsing GIR files more robust and efficient. And secondly, our objective is to add the ability to parse GI docgen links in Valadog, which is our documentation generator, and it is also a part of the Vala project. And lastly, we are going to redesign the valadog.org website so that the documentation pages that are generated by Valadog are beginner friendly. Now, to understand our first objective, we need to know what is GObject and why is it needed. As we know, much of the GNOME ecosystem has been written in C, and C is not object oriented. This makes it harder to develop applications in C because we cannot define any classes and we cannot apply any abstractions or inheritance. But the GObject type system solves this issue by offering object-oriented like features to C programmers. And it also provides automatic transparent API bindings to other compiled or interpreted languages so that we can use C objects from other languages. And Vala is based on this GObject type system. So obviously Vala is also object oriented, and basically when we compile Vala code, the Vala compiler generates the equivalent GObject C code, and this C code is then compiled by the GC compiler to give the output. There are also many Vala bindings to GObject C libraries, so we can use libraries like GTK or libadwaita to build GNOME applications in Vala. And GObject introspection is kind of a middleware layer between C libraries that are based on GObject and the language bindings. So its purpose is to make it easier for language bindings in other programming languages like Python, JavaScript, or Vala to call functions that are defined inside a library written in GObject. And it does this by providing some metadata files that language bindings can look into. And these metadata files include a GIR file, also called a GObject introspection repository file, and it is an XML file containing introspectable metadata that a language binding needs, like functions, classes, or structs, etc. And the other metadata file is a typelib file, and it stores the metadata on disk in a binary format for fast disk access. So as an example, here is a GIR file. It is an XML format, and this GIR file tells the language binding that there is a union called foo inside the namespace test, and this union has two fields, bar and mayname. And the identifiers here in the red color in this file are the GIR attributes. So this file can be parsed by an XML parser, and the language bindings can be generated from it. So this is the list of the latest GIR attributes which the Vala compiler currently doesn't support. And as part of this project, we are making the XML parser inside the Vala compiler parse these attributes so that the language bindings can be generated. And our next goal is to add support for GI documentation format to Valadoc. Valadoc is a package that generates HTML markup from the documentation comments inside Vala programs or in GIR files. And in most GIR files, the documentation comments are in GI.gen format, but Valadoc only supports the older and under-maintained GTKdoc format. And as we can see in this table here, both GTKdoc and GI.gen use a different format to render links, and Valadoc can only support the GTKdoc links. So as a result, the documentation pages of many libraries in valadoc.org render the GI.gen as plain text, and the links are not clickable. And here, for example, we can see the documentation page of the interface accessible in the library GTK, and the links here, they are not clickable. So part of our project is to make these links clickable by making Valadoc parse them from the documentation comments. And as the last task of our project, we are going to redesign the valadoc.org website. Here we can see that the website has a dark background, and this makes it harder to read the documentation, and it is also not mobile responsive, so we are going to make the website mobile responsive as well. So this was a brief overview of our project, and please feel free to ask any questions. Thank you.
Okay, so you're live. Let me see if I can get the camera on so you can see this. Okay, you're live at GUADEC. I'm going to bring the laptop down here. You can see everyone. Well, hopefully you can see everyone.
Hello.
Hello, and we're going to do a quick Q&A so you can ask questions about that specific project, or about your experience as an intern in general, whether you're enjoying it. Who's got any questions? I've got a question. What time is it where you are? Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, actually I can't hear you. Actually the voice is not clear.
You can't see me because I'm... So what I've tried to do here is put you on the stage so that you can see the public. So I'm at the side here.
Yes, I can see.
Okay, great. So any questions specifically about Valadoc? Philip has a question. Do I have? No, who has the other microphone? Maybe, yeah. You'll have to come here and speak into the laptop. We're still getting to grips with the hybrid world.
So I speak into this or into
I think into both.
Into both. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm curious about how, how exactly the web page for Validoc is generated. Is it generated directly from the GIR file, or is it? Do you take it from the vAPI files? Is there some intermediate step to go through those?
Okay, so actually, Validoc is a part of the Vala project, and it uses the Sphinx documentation generator, which builds the HTML documentation from the documentation comments. So Validoc parses the documentation from the GIR files and also from the Vala programs. So yes, it takes the documentation from the GIR files and then it parses them, and then it uses the Sphinx documentation generator to generate the HTML pages from them. And that is how the valadoc.org website is generated. Actually, I hope I made it clear.
Okay, yeah, you got that. So it comes from the GIR files, right? Okay. Any more questions? Evan has a question. It's quite a big room, as you can see, so it takes us a while to get to the front. You can use that one, apparently.
Okay. Hi. So I'm wondering, when you were adding support for the new annotations, if you ran into anything tricky, particularly around the async annotations.
Could you please repeat?
Yeah, I'm wondering when you were adding support for new annotations, if you ran into any issues, particularly around switching Vala over to the async annotations instead of like guessing what async functions were.
Right. Yes, I was a bit confused about how to add support for the async functions. So I asked my mentor about that, and he helped me a lot. So to add support for the finish function, for the glib finish function, we added the support to the GIR parser. So actually earlier, the GIR parser was guessing about how to declare a function async, because there was no robust mechanism to find whether a method is async. So we use the glib finish function to declare if a method is async. So what we did was we declared a method async if it has a glib finish function. So that is how an async method was passed from the GIR file. So yes, I ran into some issues. I was actually confused initially about how to implement support for the attribute, but my mentor really helped me, and I think that part is completed now. And you can check out the Vala repository also. I have made merge requests, and you can check out. Actually, we have implemented the support for async functions now.
Okay, what I'm learning is there's a lot of... Oh, go on. There's a lot of shared issues between all of the bindings, Vala, Python, JavaScript. Everyone has the same headaches. Okay, do we have any more questions? Or we can ask questions about internships in general. You have a room full of mentors. Okay, well, if not, I wanted to wrap up by quickly calling out every project that we have this year and every mentor. So I'm going to go back to the... Thanks for joining us, Sudhanshu. I'm going to go back to the presentation quickly. And I have to go back again. Hopefully this goes quick. Okay, so... no, that's too far. Okay, so the projects that we didn't have talks from, we didn't hear from Angelo, but Angelo's doing a project adding TypeScript support to Workbench. We didn't hear from Marcus, but Marcus is working on papers.
You are currently the only person in this conference.
And we didn't hear from Pranjal, but Pranjal is working with Jonathan to put part of the crosswords app, libipers, to Rust. So thanks to everyone for joining as interns, and a huge thanks to all of the mentors. I'd like a round of applause for everyone who's mentoring and participating.